There's no point in doing something if you don't like to do it.
Bill Wyman.
If you don't have to go and work in a factory because you can't get another job, then you certainly try to pick something that you're happy within, and we are.
Folks have said this time yesterday, there were a lot of people in the medical tent. Too much alcohol and too much drugs. Not so today. The fire department says this crowd is waiting for something. They're sitting there quietly watching. They came to hear music. The stadium filled about 1 hour earlier than it did yesterday. Just a few seats left.
Cold, cold place, Bama cotton field.
A rare recording of the Stones' Brown Sugar with Eric Clapton. Brown Sugar was a big hit in the early 70s. The album was Sticky Fingers, the first on the Stones' own label. Their new logo, featuring the tongue and lips and Andy Warhol's artful album package, caused quite a stir at the BBC.
The sleeve on this new record must have cost you quite a bit of money because it's designed by Andy Warhol. His design is a close-up shot of a man's crutch with a do-it-yourself opening zip.
Yeah, right. I hope yours hasn't broken already.
No, it hasn't. And it opens up to reveal inside yet another close-up shot of a man's crutch, but this time just in underpants. Why have you got this on?
That was Andy Warhol's idea, you know, I mean, and I thought it was a good one.
Why do you want to do things like that?
Well, I thought it was reasonably original and quite simple, really.
But what kind of an effect do you think it might have on the sort of people who buy your records, like young girls?
Oh, I think, well, it's the sort of thing young girls would like. It's quite gay, really. I don't know, maybe young boys would like it more. I don't know.
Richmond, but you're living in New York.
Yeah, New York is probably the city that's happening most, mainly because it's still got... It never stagnates, you know. It's got always there's energy and there's always an influx of this unlikely mixture of immigrants coming in that providing you with like what they brought with them, their music. You know, go to the Bronx and Brooklyn these days, and it's all Jamaicans and West Indians at least, you know. And you go, if you flip the dial on the radio at the right time, you can sometimes pick up Arabic music. You know, I mean, there's a whole load of Pakistanis, and that's the kind of thing that keeps New York happening and alive, is this influx all the time, which has always been the thing that made New York what it is. You know, there's this gateway. You know, and areas in New York, they change, you know, after, you know, some years and years you go to an area and it's this, and it's all you know, offices or garment, and then you go back 5 years later and it's 3 blocks of Koreans. Yeah, there's this sort of takeover, which is it's interesting.
I would say ours is the best record company because we have all the racks, and the next one comes. All the profit that we make is going to go to the Revolution. That was, you know what I mean? Different ones, you know. That was so fun. There wasn't one real. There was no. I never got into sort of underground records. That sort of disappointed me in a way. In a kind of way. That there was nobody that was really doing anything different. I was disappointed about that part of it, because I sort of came to a point where we said, well, we can't do anything, you know, we don't want to really do anything, we just want to make the records, you know, which is, to me, fair enough, you know. But if anyone can come up with an idea about how to sell records either cheaper, more efficiently, more, you know, without any censorship, blah, 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 blah. But there was very little of that, to be quite honest. There was nobody, and short of going out and hiring, you know, 100 people to start a new label of, you know, I mean, I don't know where to start. You know, you know, I know a little bit, but not much.
I think there are a lot of groups that want to control their own record destinies to a greater degree, you know. But isn't that part of the revolution? The workers taking over the...
Well, yeah, no, but the thing is that there's so many, all the companies are large, and if they're not large, they're still using the large companies. I mean, in Europe especially, I mean, I know more about Europe than America. But there's no one really doing anything new. No, I mean, they're probably, they never phone anyway. You know what I mean? They never sort of asked, you know. I mean, there were small companies who were groovy, you know. But I mean, it was still going to be the same kind of number, more or less, you know. And it was still capitalism. It was still the same. I mean, as everyone knows, I mean, unless you control the lines of distribution, that is capitalism, the distribution, as well as the capital. It's no good not being a capitalist if you still have to go through Capital or EMI or what, you know, or Columbia. If you're anti-capitalist, you can't go through Columbia or RCA. I mean, and the other thing is that, I mean, I'm amazed that John Lennon would change the words of his record to please EMI. I'm amazed. I mean, we would never do that in a million years. We'd just walk out. I mean, we changed the cover, but I mean, you know, no one ever asked us to change the words. I'm amazed.
Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, but that wasn't on a record. Well, I mean, I'm ashamed of doing that. We should have walked off. But I mean, we did it, you know, that was a little while ago. I don't think we do it now.
In downtown LA concert when they threw the shoes on was one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me on the stage, actually.
They were all listening.
In my whole life. But that
They'd have got hit with that anyway.
was the funniest thing that's ever happened to me on stage ever. It was just hilarious. I mean, it was made the whole concert for me.
It's lovely.
Yeah, I mean, Anaheim, everyone knows, I think Anaheim Stadium, it's not that huge, it's pretty big. And everyone at the front...
About 5 shoes came.
There was, a few people started throwing their sandals, like their Jesus sandals. I don't know why, but anyway, they did. Not maliciously, just throwing them up. And I kind of missed them all. It became like dodging them all. And then I said as a joke, and you don't think people can hear you, I said, why don't you all throw all your bloody shoes at once and get it over with?
Yeah,
instead of throwing them like once every
He
sort of minute.
said, all right then, let's have all your shoes. And then there was a minute silence while the people were taking them off, and then it was
all these shoes, and the band got really mad at me because I was the only one that got hit.
We loved dodging
with shoes before. And then everyone was being hit with shoes.
That was North Beach leather, unborn calf stuff. No, it didn't hurt.
It was the funniest thing. No one got hurt, but it was so funny. I mean, what do those people do? They went home with no shoes. I mean, it's so crazy.
We were all looking for this other cowboy boot, though. Beautiful cowboy.
Part of an event, to be part of the music, to help celebrate the music that most of them have been hearing since they could talk.
The Rolling Stones.
Don't charge the stage the minute the Stones walk out.
The Rolling Stones.
The Rolling Stones.
We got it together. I think it's going to be great. Everybody's up. Everybody's here. Everybody's ready.
It was just great. It was just great. It was great. I can't believe it.
And there are about 90,000 extremely happy people here right now. People are really happy to get some music going. It's the long-awaited start of the Rolling Stones tour as Mick Jagger and the boys will hit the stage. And
Police officials say the large crowd created no major problems.
Rolling Stones tickets for their concert sold out within 3 hours after they went on sale.
90,000 folks on hand. Thousands of fans still filing in, including these fans. So you guys looking forward to a good concert today?
You know it, man. You know it.
The Stones are rumored to be playing in a small club.
Gorgeous.
What part did you like best?
Every part.
The Stones. Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones.
It's just a different crowd out here.
Mick Jagger.
He's gorgeous.
Mick is gorgeous.
Rolling Stones.
Oh, Mick is gorgeous.
The Rolling Stones concert is now underway. Stones fans are enjoying a beautiful day today. 80,000 rock and roll fans huddled to watch Mick Jagger leap, jump, and belt out Stones hits for over 2 hours.
Things that I noticed that I got sort of a kick out of was that the police, whom at one time, when the Stones first started, were probably very negative towards this whole rock scene, had now become, now the Stones were in their 30s, so were most of the cops. So you found a lot of dancing cops, these fat cops would be bouncing around, because they were really fans to top it off, and I'm sure a lot of them pulled that assignment especially so they could, do it. This was amazing, you got, in other words, they had been around long enough to where people who worked in these auditoriums, the union people, they were real fans. So, like, the expertise in every area, I think, reached a better level because, even the union, grip at a place like the Forum or the Amphitheater in Chicago he had a chance that he was a fan, or at least, what had been grown up, under the influence of rock and roll. And that was a change, too. It was a very cooperative kind of whole thing. I mean, right from the people who, set up the equipment right down to the police who patrol the stuff. But it was a very smooth tour,
Spending too much time away. I can't stand another day. Maybe you think I've seen the world, but I'd rather see my girl. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going yes I am. Alright. I'm going home. 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 Boom, 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 home. Boom, 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 back home. Yes, I will. When you're 3,000 miles away, I just never sleep the same. If I packed my things right now, I could be home in 7 hours. I'm going home. 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 Boom, 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 home. Boom, 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 back home. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I see my baby. I see my baby. I wanna see my girl. I just can't wait. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just can't wait. I see my baby. She'll make me feel alright. Baby, I'm looking for my baby. You're gonna go in the early morning, baby. Early in the morning, early in the morning. Gonna catch that plane. I'm gonna catch that plane. Now it won't be alone. I said, listen to me. It won't be alone. No, it won't be alone, baby. It won't be alone. It won't be alone.
Bill Wyman.
Blatant lies were told all the time, you know. I mean, things people wrote about us in those days, and I've got press cuttings to prove it. Like, well, I saw them at this place, this cafe, on the motorway. Someone would write into a newspaper, and I could see the fleas jumping off their heads, you know, and there was always the statements that because we had longer hair, we never bathed, we smelled, we never washed our clothes, we had filthy clothes. Those clothes used to cost 3 times as much as the average suit because they were very difficult to find, an unusual jacket or a very groovy pair of Spanish boots, which we used to wear, which they started to call the Beatles boots, right, because the Beatles had them also, because they weren't the common footwear, so they were always regarded as not only bizarre but unclean. It was part of that. You know, I was probably dressed like I am now almost, but in those, it really was, we really were bizarre. I suppose we were refused entry into a pub for a drink, we were refused to eat at restaurants, we were, you know, they wouldn't let us go in certain shops. You'd go in a shop to buy a pack of cigarettes and they wouldn't refuse to serve you. We don't serve the likes of you in this establishment. Kindly leave, you know. It was really bizarre.
There's a point, especially with the Stones, just because they've been at this sort of point for so long, this sort of, yeah, greatest rock and roll band. My God, yeah. You gotta be joking. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 nights, yeah, you could stick them. But my opinion of all that is that any given night, it's a different band that's the greatest rock and roll band in the world, you know, because every band, you know, consistency is fatal for a rock and roll band. You know, the things that are great at rock is that click.
Couldn't be that high if they didn't get low.
No, you wouldn't know the difference. Mm-hmm. It would be just a bland, straight line. You know, originally, you know, it's like looking at a heart machine. When that straight line happens, baby, you're dead. It's got to go up and down. You know.
But do you still feel any, like, being drawn? Stop me if I ask you any embarrassing questions and I'll shut up.
I'm very hard to embarrass.
Do you still feel drawn toward it at all, or are you completely beyond it? Or do you think having children...
I always never say never. It's quite possible to say, rock and roll was just another cha-cha-cha or a hula hoop, you know. But I mean, there's no way that you can deny it. I mean, it's a way of life. It's as much a part of life for most of the people in the world that we know, as you know, eating, having breakfast. I mean, rock and roll is part of life. It made that much difference to us in that we were still into the same things, you know. And the next thing, I guess, was him saying, oh yeah, you know, I sing a bit now and again. And he said, oh, well, I play guitar a bit now and again. Our record's direct from Chess Records at this time, you know. We just ride away from to States, you know. We'd wait months for these records to arrive.
Well, I just can't be satisfied, just can't keep on crying.
Is this music what inspired you to learn to play guitar?
I started real late for a musician. I mean, I didn't start seriously. I had my own guitar when I was 15. 2 years later, I was already in Stones.
There must have come a point, even for cheeky young, you know, attractive young boys, when you suddenly realize that, wait a minute, there is not a chick in this room that I couldn't have. That must have been sort of overwhelming the first couple of times that happened.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all very well sitting in a room and thinking that, and then being dragged out and thrown in the truck because you've got to be 300 miles the next day. Constant one-night stands kind of wear away the full impact of things. You get a little slow, yeah. I mean, but you sort of took that, you know, one of the perks of the job.
I've got no expectations to pass through here again.
I think when the cops started leaning on him and they were kind of vicious in London, then it was like the first sort of witch hunt, you know, drugs and all that, which, I mean, Brian was, you know, he was so scared they wouldn't You know, and the cops would walk in and immediately they'd find a lump of hash and a piece of, you know, in the back of a drawer or something. You know, he knew that he didn't stand a chance.
Everywhere I hear the sound of Martin George feet, boy.
Brian had quit the Rolling Stones before his death. This is true,
Yeah,
right?
only by about a fortnight, yeah.
Can you say to me now that you think he died of natural causes? I mean, I have
actual
no
night
idea.
that he went down, I don't know.
Does it ever boggle your mind that the Rolling Stones have been as successful as they have for so long? Do you ever think, oh, geez, I wonder if you still got the goods?
I'd rather they've been a success than a failure. Let's face it, with this band, that's maybe another part of the indefinable thing.
That brings us up to 1972. Definitely a successful year for the Rolling Stones. The band celebrated its 10th anniversary with their 7th tour of North America and the release of a double album, Exile on Main Street. He taught himself to play guitar and to write music, but the way he writes is hardly conventional.
After having people play my own songs and Stones songs, I give them the sheet music that they write out. And I say, well, all right, play Angie as it's written here, you know. And it's totally wrong, you know. God knows what they've done to Mozart and Beethoven over the years, you know, because if it's anything to what they've done to him, it's nothing like the actual song that I wrote, you know, and it's a translation, you know, and everything gets lost in translation, you know, or at least a lot of things get lost in translation. It'll sound good. You know, it doesn't matter. You can't write rock and roll down properly on paper. You can write, you can pretend you can, you know, with a few strokes of the pen. But I mean, that isn't what you're going to hear coming out the speakers. You know? Otherwise, it would be easy. Anybody could play it.
Singer, you don't sing a bunch. People always remember the songs that you sing as Keith's song, Happy.
Yeah.
How did that come about? I mean, it is sort of a deviation, if I may use the term.
I mean, I guess it was actually usually those kind of things have come about because out of convenience, recording-wise, you know, there's, I think almost nearly all of the ones I've done on the Stones albums that I've sung have been done for that reason, you know, that it's just been easier for me to do it because I wrote it and I got the track, you know, and I've laid it on me. He's going, what's this? I mean, I've got to learn how to do this. Why don't you do it? You know, I do it.
Do you dig it, though?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really dig it.
No, I like singing, you know. I mean, before I could play an instrument, I was singing, you know. I used to be a choir boy.
Really?
Sure.
In church?
Sure.
Were you an Anglican boy?
Westminster Abbey, baby.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, soloist.
So you
then
were...
my voice broke.
Oh, sweet
soprano. First was my training in show business. My voice broke, and suddenly they did. Sorry, son, we can't use you anymore. You know, I was a soprano.
So you were a young Anglican church-going boy in England?
I wasn't. You know, it was a school choir. You know, but the only gigs a school choir gets. You know, we had a very good music, choir teacher. I mean, the weirdest thing was that it was me and two other guys were the soloists, you know, the three biggest hoods in the school, you know. We were singing like angels down Westminster Abbey at Christmas, you know, hallelujah. And we've all got our tight jeans underneath the surplices.
In 1974, they decided they would also be the group's producers and became the Glimmer Twins.
Glimmer.
I remember seeing it on a record label.
I remember exactly where it came from. It came from a little old lady. She wasn't old at all, actually. She was one of these real vivacious, sort of middle-aged ladies. You know? And she was on a transatlantic boat that Mick and I were on. We were going from Lisbon to Rio. And we had to spend 10 days on this boat. And it was, it wasn't the Love Boat. It was kind of like being thrown into some 30s movie or something. You know, it was a real English sort of ship. You know, who's sitting at the captain's table and all that crap. You know. And she was a darling. You know, we'd go in the bar in the afternoons. So this huge earring. You know. And she always desperately wanted to know what it was we were all about, the Rolling Stones, what does it all mean? Give me every time she would, give me a glimmer, and that's where it actually came from.
Horace Mick Taylor decided to leave as the group was just getting ready for a tour of North and South America. Until they decided on an official replacement, they played with a lot of different people. One of the guys who helped them out on the road was Ron Wood, no stranger to the Stones.
Ronnie didn't particularly get my attention. I just never bumped into him until about a year before he joined the Stones, and then when I did bump into him, his old lady met me in a club and she said, "Oh, Ronnie's cutting this solo album in the basement of his house. Why don't you come down? He'd love to see you." So I thought, okay, I'll come. And I just lived there. I didn't move out. I didn't see it outside of Ronnie's place for the next 4 months. It was a very immediate click, with Ronnie. But at that time, it was like an outside friendship because Mick Taylor was still with us. There's no thought of it being any different, at the time, because when Mick left, it was a real sudden thing. It just, boom, I'm leaving the band, boom, And so I was just used to hang around. Ronnie and I used to hang around just because we were friends, When Mick Taylor left, even then it was that Ronnie was the last guy we saw, I mean, which in a way is maybe obvious because there was no point in seeing anybody else after Ronnie, but in that year, the Faces had gotten real rocky, and it was on the verge of breaking up. And Mick Taylor said he was leaving, and we did,
He tried Harvey Mandel.
Yeah, I mean, Black and Blue is virtually a rundown of like some of the people who, that album was made out of sessions that we did with different guitar players, Wayne Perkins, real good guitar player, that all of them were good guitar players. Even Jeff Beck turned up for a day or two, It was, as far as, musically or being a guitar player, you couldn't, they're all great, But, when Ronnie walked in the room, it's like everybody looked at each other and went, there's no point in carrying it. We had to tell everybody else the hole was filled.
Being a receptive antenna idea, you and Mick, I think, unlike Lennon and McCartney, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, but when you have both of your names on a song, I sort of get the impression that both of you at least contributed something to it. Are you more receptive together than alone?
Yeah, probably we are. It's kind of, especially since the president, we spend a lot more time not seeing so much of each other as we used to. When we were writing, especially because when you used to write a 45 every, if you have a new single every 2 or 3 months, by the time you finished one single, you got a week with nothing, then boom, have you got the new one yet? And you got to.
Is it particularly one of you is better with melody and one of you better with lyric, or does it change?
Only I was saying that I can come up with more melodies at a given time than Mick, and Mick can come up with more lyrics.
What happens? What's the process? How do you and Mick get together and say, hey, look, I've come up with this, what do you think of this, or what? How does it happen? How does it go from ideas to record album?
Let me see. Ideas. The idea of songs is not ever very far away from me personally, but I very rarely write a song before we record it. I'll go in the studio, and I might let even the rest of the band think that I know what I'm doing, but I'll just start playing, and I'll rely upon my intuition and instinct and all those ideas I've had before, the rest of the year before we started the sessions to start coming back to me and start coming out. And I know that Charlie, who's always sitting behind the drums, he doesn't do anything, he just sits behind the drum, you don't have to ever say, where's Charlie, he's sitting there, So the minute you start playing, he starts playing, So much these songs are built up from the rest of the band as well, I mean, the actual basic idea of the song, is mine, but the way the record sounds, so let's say, as opposed to the actual song, and what I actually do is try not to think of them as songs, but I try to write records. I mean, it's a sound I'm after, not so much a piece of music, by itself. What I'm trying to do is make records. So I go in there and I start playing. Charlie started playing with me. He might play something that I hadn't even thought about, and just turn it around and then I'll get another idea. And so before they even know it, I've got a song together. And if it sounds right when we go back and listen to it, that's worth working on, then I'll start working on it as a song. Sure, and it's much, it's much more contact, with yours. But I mean, I enjoy big shows as well. Once, especially if I've got confidence in the sound that we're putting out, and not just the band, but also the sound from the equipment, I mean, sometimes you can be playing great on stage and it can be sounding diabolical out there, And it's one of the hardest other things you've had to learn as you go along is these days you have to surrender the control of the sound of the band. As somebody maybe you only met last week, there's this guy who's going to be mixing the sound for this huge audience out there, and you can't do anything about what he's putting out there because you're on stage, You can't even go out there and hear what it sounds like, So you're kind of in this no man's land there, So you have to have confidence, if I've got that, then I enjoy big shows.
Over the years, the Rolling Stones have been through a lot of hassles with record companies. They've seen musicians, executives, and entire record labels come and go. Despite that and the emphasis on making money, Keith feels there's still a lot of idealism left in the business.
In a lot of ways, I admire the music business because in a way it's really the most, and I'm English, remember. I mean, it's probably the most idealistic American business there is, in that there's very little controls on it because nobody can define music legally, so there's very little controls on this. But if you know what you're doing and you can grasp it, it's open. Therefore, it's got the best and the worst kind of people in it. I mean, it's always a source of amazement, the music business, to everybody. I'm sure from any viewpoint, to musicians' point of view, it's amazing that half the executives in the record business, were executives at A&P last year, and now they're in the music, and to them, the music is just like a can of soup on the shelf, How's how's that new line in toilet paper going? I mean,
Product.
It's just an executive thing. I mean, that's But then these guys get into the music business, and then they get into the limousines and the chicks, and then they think it's hip to carry around vials of this and that, so meet people at the airport, and they can't stand the thought of going back to A&P, but unless they can grasp the very diverse aspects of this business, I mean, you see him come and go. It's like a sausage mill, this business. When he was showing me his licks, what I do know, I mean, his main contribution was just having the instruments around for me to get interested in them, But, I guess the only difference, the way I think about it now, is that one of the most important things, a lot of the important things you do are the things that you are not your actual output and records and songs, which, I mean, up to a point are important, but it's the side effects of those things. The fact that because so many people listen to you for so many years, what turns out is that all these kids trying to play like me, because I remember when I was sitting down listening to Chuck Berry trying to play like him, you know. And yeah, so I kind of see more of a continuity in it, you know, like. And if I've turned a few people on and passed a few licks on to some people, you know, or got them doing something that maybe they would never have done otherwise, you know, what a turn, that's great, you know. I mean, so I'll do it, you know. I mean, what am I going to do, you know, go for a sort of re-educational, vocational, I don't know what else to do, you know.
The tradition. The blues in the American South was more a violent and immediate occupation. Almost all blues singers, being drifters, were outcasts from the gospel-centered communities. Son House, Lead Belly, and Booka White all served time for murder.
The Stones, according to Dalton, welded the two traditions by putting on the devil and becoming outlaws themselves, projecting a dazzling presence which is as compelling as it is deliberately contemptuous, theatrical, and exhibitionist. There were other occultic influences. While on holiday in Morocco, Brian Jones was taken to a mountain village called Jijuka to hear a group of native musicians. The power of this music is so absolute on the participants that it induces trances, states in which dancers representing gods and primeval forces, like the great god Pan, spin themselves into states of ecstasy. Brian succumbed to this power of the music, and he taped some of it with the help of a local engineer. October 14th, 1971, in Rolling Stone magazine, Bob Fisher reported,
Whatever vibrations Brian Jones may have felt his one night in Jijuka, we know that he spent the next few weeks in Tangier, listening and re-listening to his tapes, finding his way in the music.
Tony Sanchez reported that Mick and Anita's private dabbling in black magic spilled over onto the set when Donald, the producer, introduced all sorts of symbols and talismans.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about this current tour is that do you feel that you have a new kind of confidence or something about your performing, having had your own single hit? Because I noticed you moving around on that stage. You've never done that before.
I used to move, but just like 2 steps. Now I move 20 steps maybe.
You're walking clear across the stage back and forth, aren't you?
Well, the whole thing about it is that I think it's necessary because the stages are so enormous on this tour, especially on the outdoor ones, where I rehearsed my walking backwards and forwards. You have to move because otherwise you're nowhere near the audience. And just to be a speck standing there is really, you know, you've got to really animate much more, and I'm aware of that. And I did a promo film for my single, and I realised, because I'd never done one before, I'd always just stood there while Mick did all the animations, but I realised you have to sort of over-exaggerate what you're doing. When you mouth words, you have to exaggerate them, otherwise it doesn't look like your mouth moves on TV, you know. And I was never aware of that, because I'd never been in that position before. So I kind of thought the same way about the stage, and thought, well, it's about time I kind of lifted an occasional leg and did something. And I'm not talking about being a dog. You know, I used to do the shy bit just quite naturally, and they would try to make me smile, you know. Various bunches of the audience would be pulling faces, like, you know, they go like this, put their hands up and try to make me smile, and then they try to, you know, sort of persuade me to come nearer. They give me little finger waves, you know, come here, like. and I always shake my head, and it becomes a game, you know, and I've been getting away with that for 15 years. And that's fun, you know, and they love it. They love that I do not come out. But now when they do the waving of the finger, I walk forward, and then I really notice a better reaction than the tease game. It's much better when you do it, because you get a kind of a thank you from them. So that's that. That was a long answer to a short question.
But it seems like there's a different attitude. You just seem much more exuberant. I mean, last night when you left, last night was the first night at the Meadowlands, and when you got off stage and you came into the back to leave, I saw you jump up and hit the top of the balcony.
No, some guy was hanging down.
Oh, I thought you
and he
were
wanted
just
to shake hands. And when I jumped, my fullest jump, I managed to tip fingers with him, which the last time I did that was in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I disappeared off the back of the stage, if you remember.
Oh, I do
Went
remember.
to hospital for jumping up and trying to grasp someone's hand.
Well, what's different this time about your solo endeavors? Because we have talked before. You've done solo albums, you've been involved with the band touring and performing, but something happened this time that obviously made it different, not just because the single is a hit in many countries of the world.
Well, it does help.
Yes, but why was it a hit?
It does give you an inner confidence, because everybody, I think I've talked to you about this before, and other people, that I believe that everybody everywhere is insecure in some ways, and it permeates through bands, musicians, everything, show business, film stars. There's always that insecurity, and that's why they have to lean on something or somebody or alcohol or whatever it might be to boost up their lack of confidence, or they have to be incredibly extrovert visually. As for instance, Keith is a typical example. He's a very shy person, but he acts like he could conquer the world. You know what I mean? On stage, he's not really like that, he needs that, you know. And there is a lack of confidence there, and I've always had that, and I think everybody has, as I just said. And you need to prove yourself to yourself by doing other things sometimes. If you're in a group, if you're a solo artist or a solo, like a film star or an actor or something, you do have to prove yourself. But even then, you could still say to yourself, well, was it because the play was such a good play? Was it because my lines were so good? Or was it because I performed them well, you know? And you never really know that, you know? No matter what people tell you or you read about, you never really know. And I always have thought over the years, well, am I famous and popular and whatever, successful, because I'm in a band with 4 other people, and it could be someone else. It's not, am I contributing, you know? This is me to me, not me to you. So there's that insecurity. So you go out and you try to do other things. And I did solo albums. I've done a movie score now and things like that. And I've gained an inner confidence that I didn't have before. I feel more sure of myself and more confident that I am where I am because of my own endeavours as well, not just accidentally being at the right place at the right time and slipping in. So I feel more confident facing people that are watching me now.
You've been quite busy in the past year, and
I'm
you
always
lead
busy.
an interesting life. And there's the blues album, there's the soundtrack, there's your album, there's the book you're doing with Chagall,
Yeah.
the photos. You know, you're doing stuff with the computer. And how does it feel to have sort of put all of that on hold and go off on tour with the Stones?
But that's fine, because the Stones are the most important project.
Still?
Well, of course they are. Otherwise I wouldn't be here, would I? I'd be promoting this movie or something, running around the world. Of course they are, and they always have been, and that's why I haven't been that productive in other fields before now.
That you lead a very orderly life. I mean, you know where your videotapes are and your computer things that you're getting together for the Stones, and you're on time, and you're usually up during the day. And how does that fit in with the haphazard way that is this band's modus operandi?
Doesn't have to fit in, you see. It's how my time fits in with my working time, my free time. I might be too tired at 1 o'clock in the morning after the show to go out to dinner with friends or go to a party. Woody might go, you know, or Mick might go. I don't hang out, you know.
I think you're much more sane than anybody in the band.
I'm probably just as insane in a different way. I have to be organised, that's all. Insanely organised.
How?
And the band's business affairs have never really been that well organised. They're very, very haphazard, you know, and I don't like that.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. How has that affected your attitude towards your business in relation to the band?
It's made me make sure that mine is organised, because I find it incredibly frustrating that the way we organise and do things, you know, but that is the way we do it, the way we record, the way we set up things, you know. They change daily, the times change, people get late or don't want to go, or, you know, and that's the way this band is, and that's part of the charm of this band, I think. But I can't, when I'm doing personal things, I can't be like that.
What do you think it'll be like after this tour? Do you think you'll do a tour of Europe, or you'll come back again?
I think it's going to be quite a lot more work. I've been trying to persuade the band that we should tour Europe. For 2 years I've been trying to get that motivated, because we haven't played there since '76. I think that's a pretty awful record of appearances. So it's kind of on the cards that we may do it next summer, you know. And it is on the cards that we may do Australia this coming spring, because last autumn we were going to do Australia, but then we had to finish the album. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Oh dear.
WFM in New York. We go to Richard Gere at Madison Square Garden. Richard?
Okay, Vin, it's just as exciting as it was in the Meadowlands. The lights have gone down. We're here with Scott Muni. You can hear the introduction. Multicolored lights on that stage. We still haven't figured out a way to describe the shape of it, Scott. It's just...
Well, it's about a whole bunch of tongues.
It's almost like flower petals.
A lot of tongues, and it's Japanese, and it's Oriental. The stage moves, and here they come.
We just saw Bill Wyman walk on stage.
Here they come.
Keith Richards wearing kind of a red jacket. Mick is behind the stage now.
Here he comes, and he's got the knee pads again.
Same stuff, those tight sort of ballet pants with the knee pads, a yellow jacket. I guess later on he'll move on into his football jersey. They're starting with Under My Thumb, as they have done on most of the dates of this tour. Whole band is on stage now. Mick's got the wireless mic, and here we go.
Told me I was crazy to stay.
listening to a recreation of the Rolling Stones' 1981 Jovan tour over WNEW-FM here in New York.
To